so that if detention is needed, because we've got a host of drainage issues all over the city. And part of this will help alleviate that by giving them some guidelines on how to follow that. And as you move along, it'll start helping to improve it. Because they'll have to not only analyze their side, but they also have to analyze downstream too, to make sure that the receiving bodies can handle that water. And so it's a big deal. I think it's a good program.
Maybe how will this affect the 183 and Meandering project? Is that something that TxDOT recognizes and that's not going to change their calculations on anything, or won't be any other delays for those projects because of this this program?
Well, the state right-of-way, that's a good question. TxDOT is TxDOT, and they kind of do their own thing and fly by their own mechanisms. So they have their own drainage ordinance, and that's what they'll be abiding by. TxDOT is really kind of one person or the federal government this isn't going to impact at all, because they have their own drainage criteria.
But their program comes in where their obligation stops and ours start. Are we going to be able to marry these things up? We're not going to be out of a lot of extra funds that we're not anticipating. I guess is what I'm looking at.
No, I don't think there's going to be any issues with that. I mean, you're still going to have the same drainage coming out of there. The way we'll calculate it with the ISWIM versus the way TxDOT does it, different but similar. Like I said, TxDOT has moved over to the Atlas 14 drainage runoff coefficients, and that just happened within the last 30, 40 days. So they're one of the ones that's kind of moved over there. Like I said, we're seeing a few of the other cities to the intensity factors on it. But it's not that far off from what the NCCOG is, so it's not that big of a deal. It's not a huge change. TP40 to the ISWIM and Atlas 14 is a huge change in the runoff. So, and the intensity stuff. So you're not going to run into a big problem with TxDOT. I don't think it's going to cost you money. It's just as we go through, we have to, just worry about it.
If they do this, and then we look at this program and say, we've adopted this now, since they did this, we have to do this to abide by this. You don't see an issue that's going to...
We do it anyhow, so that's the way we've been operating with stuff. So, I mean, we'll take up, if TxDOT's discharging so much water, we have an idea of what it is, and we'll go back in and redevelop the basin like we would normally do, or utilize their basin and go back and apply our rainfall intensities on it to do a comparison between the two, and look and see which one was more conservative, and that'll be the one we'd have to follow.
And any existing problems that we know of right now, like let's be on stormwater, we know we have a lot of water issues out there. This is not going to compel us to do anything ahead of what we're trying to do now, as we get the money to do it. We're trying to do things as we go.
It's an evaluation on a case-by-case as you go through it, but it would be no different, if you try to fix a drainage problem at the far upstream of the thing, you still have to analyze the downstream to get there. So, and if you do it, you're analyzing it by similar circumstances. I don't think it's going to cost the city any more money. It'd be a normal engineering practice to go through and evaluate it. It's just now we're kind of operating with apples and apples versus apples and cantaloupes, like I explained the other day. Yeah.
So why would, what is that big ditch called in that housing addition?
Retention pond.
The retention pond, sorry. So why would that still be our responsibility if we're going to this?
Here's part of the problem down there. That doesn't guarantee that you go to that. What we got down there is we got an owner-developer that every time he sells a house, it's going to be one less percentage of ownership he has, to the point that finally he gets to less than 50%, and we have no guarantees. He don't have to own up to it. That was why I was pushing for an HOA, but I understand down there having just an HOA just for a detention pond was probably too much. But on this particular one, there is no extra common land. That's all there is. And we wouldn't have any way to hold the owners of each one liable that I know of to do that, unless you know something else.
The only way it happens, because the owner of that lot, they sell every lot in that subdivision, the owner of the last lot would be responsible for it, and that last lot is the detention pond, and it's never going to get built on.
Yeah.
So you know, if I was a developer in that situation, I just wouldn't pay taxes. I'm just telling you, because I've seen developers do that, where you leave them in that situation, they just don't pay the taxes on it, and it gets auctioned off at the courthouse. Nobody's gonna buy it, so they say, no, that's the city's problem, and it goes right back to you anyhow.
Yeah.
So without an HOA in place, there's really no way to manage that stuff.
Have you seen the HOAs for something like that, with a small street like that?
Yeah, we've seen HOAs do all sorts of stuff. A lot of times they're responsible, like Marvin said, maintaining the open space areas. So sometimes you have a park or some linear sidewalks or some open areas in a floodplain or something like that, that's just kind of like open area for people to enjoy and stuff like that. But it's still got to be mowed. If there's a sidewalk in it, a sidewalk has to be maintained. You know, you'll see HOAs that have private streets, you know, in some of these subdivisions that we deal with. So it's not a public street, it's a private street. So if they're, you know, they can go in and gate it to keep it as a closed community. Well, if it's gated like that, well, then it's not public right of way, therefore it doesn't belong to the city. And so somebody has to maintain it. When that road falls apart, as they do, you know, somebody's got to pay for it. So the HOA collects dues. That's the way those things are set up normally, is to collect dues from each one of the homeowners. And then those dues go in there to fix those problems as they occur in the future.
So I can see where the owner, or the developer doesn't want to do it because it's a hassle, but I think we need to make sure we analyze that and make sure that that's not an undue burden on them, because it would solve the problem on behalf of the city.
You know, staff actually presented that to the planning and zoning, and they were totally against an HOA.
I heard they were against
They
it,
really understood it.
but why, what were their concerns with there being a...
They said that the city's gonna have to take care of the streets, water, and sewer anyway, and so that they should take care of that too as a part of the utilities.
Charles was one that said it's a road, it's just like a road, it's just something we gotta take care of. We're getting paid enough tax dollars for this development to pay for it. So, I don't agree either. It is what it is. But I'm glad you said what you said, that they can just wash their hands of it and let it be auctioned off.
But that's a
Right to our city.
If there's not an HOA, they could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, I've seen that, you know, over the last 24 years, 26 years I've been doing this. I've seen people do that in cities, and so that's where you start seeing these cities requiring HOAs on some of these subdivisions and stuff like that to maintain it. I mean, and some people don't want to be in HOAs, you know, they don't even want to move to subdivisions with an HOA, tell you, you know, what color you paint your house, or what type of material you can do, or how tall your fence can be, or, you know, have somebody out there with a ticket writing book saying, hey, your grass is out here measured up at, you know, 3.5 inches and 3 is the max, you know?
I think that's the reason they were against it, they get all the horror stories.
Yeah.
But it don't work. I mean, look at Inspiration Lane is another example. We had to go down there and fix that road, and they've got an HOA.
Yeah,
They were supposed to put that
fixed that road several times.
The road was supposed to be part of their HOA?
Well, originally it was a private road, but at some point the city took over the road.
We had to because of the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
But then we had to put curb and gutters and everything.
So once the city took it over,
There wasn't enough money in there to do the road. Won't say why, but I'm just saying it wasn't.
So did we get any though?
We got a little, but it wasn't much.
All right, anybody else who wishes to speak during this public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:29, and we'll move on to item 11, which is action from public hearing. Consider adopting the ISWIM program developed by COG that addresses both stormwater quality and stormwater quantity, together with the City of Fort Worth 2015 Stormwater Criteria Manual that became effective on September 29th, 2015 as a resource guideline for locally adopted design criteria by adopting ordinance number 1348-2022. And if anybody wants to come up and peruse that, you're more than welcome to.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1348-2022.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1348-2022. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. I don't know why I did that. Motion carries. We're adjourned, apparently. I'm getting old. Okay, motion carries, yes. Item number 12, which is consider approval of mayor's recommendation for 2022